Welcome to Bendigo.
Created in one of the world's greatest gold rushes, Bendigo is a historic city with a contemporary lifestyle. Located in the heart of Victoria, Bendigo is a smooth and easy 90-minute drive from Melbourne. See the picturesque parks, gardens and streetscapes of our culturally diverse city. Slow down and take in our grand heritage, modern design, arts and culture, food and wine with a wide range of unique attractions.
Visit Australia's oldest working pottery.
And be inspired by the city's extraordinary history on a guided walking tour.
The city features gorgeous, rich Victorian architecture, living new lives as restaurants, cafes and shops.
Come and enjoy a tour at Fortuna Villa and witness its gold rush legacy.
See the sights of Bendigo aboard a vintage talking tram. Appreciate the craftsmanship that has gone into restoring the largest vintage tram fleet in the world. Be inspired by our arts and culture and explore one of the oldest and largest regional galleries in Australia. We have cemented a reputation for presenting innovative international exhibitions, such as Tudors to Windsors and Marilyn Monroe.
Come face to face with Dagam Lung, the world's longest processional dragon.
See an engaging performance at the 1,000-seater Lumbra Theatre, built in a historic jail.
Visit the largest Buddhist stupa in the Western world.
Take part in our iconic annual events, Bendigo Blues and Roots Music Festival and Bendigo Uncorked Week.
Journey through Bendigo's street art scene.
See a film at our boutique cinema.
Indulge yourself in the vibrant mixture of Bendigo's eateries and award-winning restaurants.
Taste the food and beverages of Australia's UNESCO City of Gastronomy.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the very first session of the Unseen series, which is the digital version of the Bendigo Wine Growers Association's Heritage Uncorked event. My name is Kath Belatho, I'm your MC today, and we'll be discussing all things about wine with three very wonderful winemakers today. We have Tony Winspear from Balgownie Winery, and he'll be showing his 2019 Pinot Gris. We have Russell Clark from Grangehill Winery, and he has his 2020 Chaperon Rosé. And we have Cliff Stubbs from Acre Vineyard with the 2018 Shiraz. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start with Balgownie. So, Tony, please tell us a little bit about Balgownie, the vineyard, and what your job is there as the winemaker.
Thanks, Mel. I'm Tony Winspear, winemaker at Balgownie Estate in Maiden Gully, just outside of Bendigo. Balgownie is the oldest commercial vineyard in the Bendigo wine growing district, and was first planted in 1969 by Mr. Stuart Anderson. 5 acres of Shiraz and 5 acres of Cabernet are in the ground, still in the ground from 1969, and producing fantastic, complex, flavoured fruit, which we're still enjoying today.
Thank you. Now, let's have a look at this wine. So this is a Pinot Gris. Can you explain the wine to us a little? Absolutely. So we've sourced this fruit for this wine from a lovely cool climate vineyard in Faraday, which is about 25 minutes south of Bendigo itself. It's cool climate, it's 500 metres altitude. David Braybrook and his crew look after us down there, grow great fruit. Pinot Gris loves that cool climate. So here we've got this lovely light golden colour, and aromatically it's giving us some beautiful fragrances such as honeysuckle, such as jasmine, fruit flavours in there, Nashi pears, Bartlett pears, and also some beautiful stone fruit. Texturally, Pinot Gris is all about a lovely soft texture, so we age it on lees, we pick it a little later. The difference between a Pinot Gris and a Pinot Grigio
is that the Pinot Gris is picked slightly later and has a softer, rounder feel, whereas a Grigio, which is the Italian style, the Gris is the French style, the Grigio is picked early and is crisp and dry. Okay, so on the palate, what you get is just this beautiful, soft roundness. Straight away when I'm having a wine, I'm thinking what food I'll have with it. And in this case, lovely spicy Asian food, because it's got that beautiful texture and roundness to it, and soft acidity, lovely persistence, and very, very nice length.
Excellent. Gentlemen, what do you get from that wine? Are you tasting some additional complex flavours? Russell, what do you think?
Oh, it's definitely picking up the honeysuckle. Yes.
And I am really enjoying the viscosity of this wine. I feel that it's got a lovely mouthfeel, the texture that you were talking about, Tony, but it just envelopes the whole inside of the mouth. I really do enjoy it.
Oh, thank you. And we get that texture from extended lees aging. So in this case, no oak involved, wild fermented in tank, and we keep it on the original primary lees from the primary fermentation, and every couple of weeks we'll give it a stir, a little bit of a mix-up, and that really, really promotes that texture that you're talking about.
No, I think it's a very nice adjunct to the wine to have that texture in it. I think it really adds to it.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
So when you're making this wine, is there anything specific that you think of or you need to prepare for, or when you're deciding what you'd like it to turn out like, or how you want the vintage to run?
Well, we are at the mercy of the vintage, which is one of the most exciting parts about being a winemaker. Every year is totally different, as the other guys here will attest. 2019 was a very, very nice vintage. So we had really, really excellent weather, nice long slow ripening season, so that kept the natural acidity, which keeps the brightness to the fruit. And in this case, because the fruit was so well naturally balanced, the wild fermentation took off all by itself, which is exactly how you would like it. Yeah. And that also gives another level of complexity to the wine.
So as a winemaker, do people ask you what you like to drink a lot?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable question. I drink widely, and that covers all wine styles. Most recently, I opened a bottle of Italian Moscato, made in the Piedmont region, which is where the style originated from. And it's a sweet wine, but by jingo, they know how to make a good Moscato, the Italians.
And what about you, gentlemen? Are you often expected to only drink your own wines?
In my case, on a number of occasions, people have invited me around for dinner and then served up our own wines to us, which I've always been amused by because we've got them on tap at home, of course. But we still appreciate that they rate the wines, that they want to bring them out like that. So, but we love trying other people's wines as often as we can. I love trying wines from all around the world, and so does my wife. Yeah.
Excellent. And how about you, Russell?
I have to be a bit honest here. I'm a bit of a cellar palate. I generally do drink our wines, which I really enjoy, but I do like a bit of Coonawarra, some other Bendigo wineries. Yes.
Obviously, Shiraz is really the benchmark of our region. What other wines do you think are emerging at a rapid rate that are going to be really exciting in the next couple of years?
Oh, I think Grenache. And I think Russell's got some Grenache in. Wes Vine over at Mandarang Valley, he's got some lovely Grenache in. He's doing some great blends over there. And I think this is a really good thing. The Bendigo wine scene is changing rapidly. We've got some great young winemakers coming on board. David Lawson at Black Wallaby Wines, Mel Chester over there at Sutton Grange, putting out some fantastic wines. and a whole heap of different varieties are being produced now. If you looked at the Bendigo wine scene 20 years ago, there was a lot of Shiraz and Cabernet and a bit of Chardonnay, and now we've got many, many different varieties.
Excellent. Russell, we've got a question here. What is your favourite wine style?
Shiraz would be my favourite. I do like a GSM. We do make a beautiful GSM. But I've got a pretty broad palate, but I don't mind a Cabernet as well. But yes, I've got broad view.
Excellent, excellent. So we are going to now have a bit of a look at some further information that Tony has supplied to us in regard to caring for older wines and decanting.
Hi, I'm Tony Winspear, winemaker at Balgownie Estate, Bendigo. We run a museum program whereby we put away a small percentage of our best wines each vintage. 2005 Estate Shiraz is one of those. A patron has just ordered this wine to be served for a special dinner they're having in our restaurant. I'm going to take the cork out gently and decant the wine to remove any sediment and also to give a little bit of oxygen which will help the wine to open up. A young wine could be decanted just to introduce some oxygen. We wouldn't expect a young wine to have a great deal of sediment. An old wine, which is made in a traditional fashion, will have some sediment. And here I am, corkscrew in the top, just gently. The cork's been in here for 14 years. So we have to remember to take our time and just slowly push the plunger down and just lifting up, trying not to get any cork into the bottle. And there we have it. Cork's in fantastic condition. Now, I'm going to light my burner. That'll give me a light, a naked flame, so I can view the sediment in the bottle as it comes up while I'm decanting, so I can stop the decanting at exactly the right time. So far, so good. I'm just watching carefully. In the bottle, there's a little bit of sediment coming up from the back. I've got my eye very clearly on it. We'll probably need to stop when there's about 5% of the bottle left. Looking very good. Here we go. Here's a bit of sediment, and we will stop right there. And that's how you decant a bottle of wine. It's a bit of a practice to get this right, but it's absolutely well worth it with these beautiful traditional old wines. And then simply pour. And as we'll be serving this at the table, the person who's chosen the wine will then be asked to okay it. We do that by nosing it and by tasting it. Lovely, beautiful, lifted fruit, some spice and oak, and some really beautiful, savoury characters coming through. Absolutely delightful. Everything is in its right place. We'll be able to serve this one without any problems.
Cliff, can you tell us, was 2020 a good vintage for this region?
It was a small vintage, would be my first summation. We only got about a half crop at Burnt Acre, and I can't speak for everybody across the wine growers in our area, but it certainly was a smaller vintage, but we also, often small vintages, you make very good wine because you've got a lot of flavour going into half the amount of grapes, and so you end up making some very rich, lovely soft tannic wines when talking about red wine.
How about you, Russell?
2020, it was a very small vintage, the same as Cliff. Great natural acids this year. Really enjoyed the acids in the wines. Some intense flavours. Great for a rosé. The rosé really benefited from the natural acidity. So it wasn't a bad vintage, just very tiny though.
Excellent. Tony, should all wines be decanted?
That's a really good question, and one I often get asked. Red wines will mostly absolutely benefit from decanting, except when you've got a Methuselah of a wine that might be 30 years old and you don't want to introduce too much oxygen to it because it may only drink for a short period of time. Our Shiraz, which we just saw the video of, 15 years old, absolutely benefits from a decant. A 5-year-old wine or a 3-year-old wine, give it some air, let it express itself. Absolutely loves a bit of air.
Excellent. So Russell, let's have a look at your rosé here.
This is our rosé from the 2020 vintage. It comes off our dryland unirrigated bush vines, Grenache. It's got beautiful citrus characters to it, lovely acid, and I call it similar to a French style.
What is it about the wine specifically that is similar to a French style?
You get a bit of apple, a bit of greenness to it, very pale in colour.
And do you think that that wine style is indicative of other rosés in this region?
Well, there's not many rosés in this region that are made from Grenache. So it is a bit different to your standard rosé in the area. And Grenache is just so suited to making a beautiful rosé.
So what other varieties are we using in this region to produce rosé?
Cabernet, Shiraz, the world's the market, whatever you want to make a rosé out of, really.
Yeah.
Some people use a white wine and add some red grapes to it.
Would you like to explain to the audience, Russell, about the amount of skin contact? Just explain the winemaking process of a rosé, because they really are a white wine made using red grapes.
Well, this is totally whole bunch pressed. We just pick the fruit, we take it down to Ron Snippet Walshman's reef. He puts it through his airbag press, so it's very minimal colour adjustment. Then we bring it back and ferment it on wild yeast. No acid was added to this wine whatsoever. It's totally natural. And yeah, so it depends on the skin contact with the rosé will make out the colour of the rosé. So the more skin contact you have, the richer the colour will be. In our case, we like very minimal colour.
Let's start with your rosé, and then maybe, gentlemen, tell us about rosé in general.
With our rosé, I generally drink my rosé before I have a red wine. I like it as a palate cleanser.
You prefer it as an entree?
Yes, as an entree, so that's my food. So it's just my starting drink for the night. As in for foods, it's got a lot of spice to it, so it can handle quite spicy food. Yeah.
I'd love to have your rosé with an antipasto platter.
Yes.
I think it'd go great because it's got that excellent acidity. So you have some of those slightly oily Italian type sausages or something like that. Perfect. Really, really go well.
Very versatile wine, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
So Tony, does that mean the acidity is actually refreshing your mouth from all that oil that gets inside your palate when you're eating fatty foods?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we do a rosé at Balgownie, and I actually write a little blurb which basically says, get your bestie, get the market umbrella out and the chairs, and pour yourself a glass, and if somebody brings you some food after a little while, well, happy days. If not, enjoy your rosé.
Yeah.
Cliff, do you think that rosé has, is it a good reputation it has as a Sunday afternoon drink, or do you think we should take it a little more seriously?
Look, I think it's a versatile type of wine that works really well with a wide range of food, and so it is probably a more more of a drink, just an everyday type drink. It's generally they're not that expensive, so they're good value wine for everyday drinking.
Russell, have you always wanted to be a winemaker?
Not in the slightest. Came out of left field. I moved up from the city. I was a city boy, and I moved up from the city 26 years ago. Always wanted to make a living off the land. And with the history of my property, Grangehill, knowing that it was a winery in the vineyard back in the 1800s, it led me to that path of growing grapes. Then I went down the path of learning winemaking, worked at a couple of different wineries. It started off as a dream, then it became my passion, and now it's an obsession that's gone overboard.
Okay. And how about you, Cliff? Why do you make wine?
I drove into Passing Clouds in about 1986 into the cellar door, met Graham Leith, the owner of the property, and he had a big function happening, and I said, look, I think I've driven in on something here and invaded your privacy. And he said, no. He said, they're just some people having a function here, come in and have a taste of our wines. And they were some of the most beautiful, supple reds I'd ever had. And I said, wow, I said, I don't know anything about winemaking. I'd love to learn a bit about it. And he said, well, come up and pick some grapes in about 3 weeks' time. We're harvesting. He said, Stefano De Piri from the famous Mildura restaurant's going to be cooking for us. And he said, throw up a tent in the vineyard and you can come and work in the cellar for the weekend and learn how we do it. And so I did. I went up about 3 weeks later and I just loved it. The dirtier I got and the harder the work, the more I seemed to enjoy it. And it just evolved from there. I started going up helping Graham prune the vineyard up there, and he told me about a small property at Morong that was coming up for sale from a local farmer who had a few acres of vines on 10 acres. And I ended up buying that property off him, and I became an instant vigneron with a 17-year-old paddock full of grapevines. That was in 1989, and we made our first Burnt Acre label wines in 1992, which were released in 1994.
So Tony, you mentioned before that the vintage depends on the weather, the gods, varying factors. Kind of makes me feel like you must be crazy to be a winemaker. Do you think that's part of the thrill?
I absolutely think so. 2020 vintage for us, we had 20 call-outs to turn the frost machines on. Others in the district did not have any luck. They lost their entire crop. We got through the frost season, but Mother Nature had her way with us because she brought the hail through and we lost half our crop that way. So every year is absolutely different. As Cliff says though, the silver lining was that you get more concentration in your fruit because of the smaller crop. But also 2020 vintage brought a beautiful, long, mild ripening period from the colour change right the way through to harvest. It was one of the best ripening periods after Christmas that I can remember, and the natural acidities and the brightness of the fruit is something to remember. Mm.
Excellent. We're going to have a little look further at Russell's beautiful historic vineyard. We'll see you back in this space very, very soon.
G'day, it's Russell Clark here from Grangehill Vineyard. Our property has a beautiful history of being involved in the wine industry back in the 1800s, when the original owner, Edward Bond, built these beautiful buildings for making his wines. This building is the original wine barn that was used for storing wine barrels in. And we use it now as our cellar door, and we've held many beautiful functions here. These boxes here are label boxes that Edward Bond used for labelling his wines. Next, I'll quickly show you through our winery. It's nothing flash, but it's got beautiful history too. This is our beautiful winery building, made of hand-split posts. We believe it dates back to the 1870s. Come inside and I'll quickly show you what we do inside. These are all our wine barrels. The wine's maturing in oak. All our reds go through 20% carbonic maceration, which adds a beautiful sweet fruit character to the wine. We also use wild yeast from the vineyards. We specialise in rosés and big flavours and reds. When we started the replanting process at Grangehill Vineyard, we wanted to show people the old style of growing grapes, how they would have done it in the 1800s.
So with our Grenache and Mourvedre, we grew them as bush vines without wire or trellis, and they're just freestanding like a small fruit tree. With our soils, we allow cover crops to grow in between our vines, and we allow them to go through their whole cycle. We don't cut them down until they finish seeding, they dry up, and this forms a beautiful, when I go through and brush cut the vineyard, this forms a beautiful mulch over the soils. And because they seed each year, they self-generate the seed, so it's a totally sustainable way of growing grapes. The root system that gets into the soils adds organic matter. I'll quickly show you the Shirazes. Our trellis Shiraz vines. Growing our way, we don't use any fertilisers, any herbicides, any pesticides, any irrigation, and no heavy machinery is allowed on the land. This allows our vines to have a beautiful root system that goes down many metres. Anyway, enjoy a glass of wine.
Cliff, we're going to have a look at your wine now. So this beautiful Shiraz. Tell us a bit about Burnt Acre and tell us about this wine.
Okay, well, we named the property Burnt Acre after a fire while harvesting the 1990 crop. One of the pickers lit a barbecue which got away, and 20 pickers couldn't put it out, and the wonderful CFA happened to be on their trucks this Sunday morning, having their Sunday morning practice, and so they were there very quickly, which really saved the vineyard. And I might add, we've had a couple of small fires in the ensuing years since, and they have again saved the day for us. So I'm very, very grateful to the local CFA for their contribution to Burnt Acre Vineyard. Now, the 2018 vintage was starting off with a nasty frost in late 2017 after bud burst, and it affected our crop fairly hard. We lost a fair bit of our fruit that year. It also happened in 2014, so winemaking and grape growing can be rather tenuous. Only needs one cold frosty night about this time of the year to do a lot of damage. And so we went into the 2018 season with only a small crop, and two of our other local vineyards kindly sold us some grapes and wine, and we were able to just supplement our own small harvest with a little bit of local fruit. And we've put together this blend, which is, have a smell of it first because it's quite ripe. This wine came in at about 14.5% alcohol, and I think it has a lot of perfume. We also put a couple of percent of Grenache into our Shiraz, which is a very perfumed variety, and even just a couple of percent into the blend, I think really adds to the wine. The palate is quite long, in my opinion anyway. I love wines that sort of roll down the tongue and linger in your mouth and don't just disappear. And both my fellow winemakers here also grow and make Shiraz and have done for a number of years. And I'd be interested in your comments on the wine too.
Oh look, Cliff, I'm really enjoying this. It's a lovely, spicy Shiraz, which is typical of the middle and northern end of the Balgownie wine growing district, Bendigo wine growing district. Because down south, when you go to the likes of Blackjack, Harcourt Valley, Loam, you get lovely pepper because it's cooler down there. And that's one of the really interesting things with the Shiraz variety. Depending upon where it's grown, it actually presents in slightly different ways. This has got really lovely, supple tannins to it. And I reckon I've noticed you moving in a more supple way with your wines. Would you agree with that?
Certainly. I've actually, if I had a criticism of my own wines over the years, it would be the probably the softness of the tannins, and I'd wanted to increase the tannin levels in the wine just to have a more mouthfeel. And so I've been improving my oak selection, having some skin maceration where at the end of the fermentation, just after we pick and crush the grapes, we leave the skins soaking in the newly made wine and get a little bit more extraction. And I think that's really helped with getting more sort of supple tannins and sort of more richness of flavour in our wines. And I've been quite pleased with the results without fiddling around too much, because we've made Shiraz off the property now for about 28 vintages. So, you know, we have some sort of consistency of style, but you can always improve. And so we don't experiment that much, but we certainly like to try and improve and make our wines, you know, consistent.
Excellent. Russell and Tony, if we were going to taste this wine next to the Shiraz that you both produce, what would be the differences or similarities that you would see in those wines?
Oh, look, I absolutely see that lovely, spicy, central Victorian Shiraz character that we get in our Shiraz wines from Balgownie. Cliff's only just up the road from us, a couple of clicks, and we also have other vineyards in the area. Ross Lagoon, lovely, spicy Shiraz. Paul makes some, help me with his name, Sandhurst Ridge.
Sandhurst Ridge, Paul Greblow.
Lovely, spicy Shiraz. So our particular area in the Bendigo wine growing region gives us this really interesting version of Shiraz, and it's approachable early, but it ages fantastically well and does 10 years on the trot, easily, yeah.
We're going to now have a little look behind the scenes at this beautiful building, the Bendigo Art Gallery. The Bendigo Art Gallery was founded in 1887. It was originally housed in the School of Mines until 1890, and then it was moved to its current address here in View Street, Bendigo. Varland was the original architect, with an expansion in 1897, and that was overseen by William Beebe. Over the years, the gallery has continued to expand and is now known as the leading regional art gallery in Australia. Interestingly, I found out why the gallery left the School of Mines. There was an exhibition and there was a nude painting called The Spanish Maiden, which caused a huge scandal at the time. And as explained to me by gallery staff earlier this week, we had a nude painting and it was too rude, so it got us kicked out. We're going to take you on a tour now, and we'll be back to finish with your final questions. So please pop them in on the screen and we'll go through them really soon.
Welcome to Bendigo Art Gallery's Historic Courts. My name's Emma Bazowski-Cox. I'm one of the curators here. Bendigo Art Gallery was founded in the late 1880s, and distinguished Bendigo architect William Charles Varland supervised the conversion of the Volunteer Rifle Brigade's room on View Street into a home for the gallery's collection. The revamped gallery occupied just a single-room exhibition space, the building now known as Bolton Court. Over the years, the gallery has evolved through a series of extensions and redevelopments to its current form, and it retains 3 splendid historic courts. These galleries were designed in the grand European tradition, with polished wood floors, ornate plaster arches, and diffused natural skylighting. Over the years, the walls of the historic courts have been painted different colours. This light blue-green was an interior colour choice for the wealthier families of the goldfields. Blue was considered synonymous with opulence and wealth and provided an uplifting backdrop to the dark timber of Victorian furniture and the gold frames of the paintings of the period. Simple painted wall treatments came into vogue in the late 19th century, and colours such as dove grey, pale blue and eau de Nil, or water of the Nile, replaced highly patterned wallpapers in the homes of fashion-conscious Victorians. So a carefully selected period colour such as this may enhance the heritage values of the gallery itself. The pale blue-green offers up a greater breadth of possibilities for display as it is complementary to both works on paper from the colonial collection as well as modern paintings. Importantly, from a conservation point of view, the colour significantly lightens our gallery spaces without the need to increase our artificial lighting levels, which need to remain low. This, we feel, enhances the visitor viewing experience and aids the longevity of display for our historic collections.
Cliff, where do we find your wines?
If you're local in the Bendigo region, the wine bank always stocks our wine, as does the local IGAs. They've been very supportive of local wineries. If you're further away, please just go onto our website, burnacre.com.au, and you can order the wines via the website, and they will be delivered to you.
Russell?
You can come out to our cellar door, which is located 15 kilometres from Maldon. It's an old historic cellar door, which you saw in the video. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook under Grangehill Vineyard, and you can contact us through that site.
And how about you, Tony?
Well, I think people should come out to Balgownie now. We're reopened, the restaurant's humming. Come and try the wines. We've got some really good discounts for sales at cellar door, or you can go to balgownieestatewines.com.au, and we send wine out around Australia.
Gentlemen, let's say goodbye to everybody. Let's cheers to you. Look, we've all gone for the Shiraz.
Cheers. Enjoy your wines, guys.
Bendigo wine.
Cheers.